Hello everyone, my name is Tia Bilali and I work as a project manager for Creative Thinking Development in Greece. Creative Thinking Development is a non-profit organization dedicated to promote and enhance innovation, entrepreneurship, social economy and sustainable development. Today I will talk to you about the final unit of Module 7. More specifically, we will talk about Unit 7.3, Avoid obsolescence and overproduction by reducing time to market. The contents are the European textile trends, matching consumer needs, on-demand production, and some notes for the summary. Starting with definitions of textiles, clothing, and accessories. First of all, when we mention textile industry, we usually refer to production of yarn, textiles, and fabrics. What we will use later on for the clothing industry, for the car industry, for the medical industry, and for many more. So clothing industry, or also referred as garment, apparel, or fashion industry, is the production of the garments. However, the textile industry as a sector includes household textiles, technical and industrial textiles, or the medical textiles industry. The fashion industry can also include shoes, bags, jewelry, and other accessories in addition to the clothes. According to the World Trade Organization textile quotas, from 2004 to 2012, there was an increase of consumption from the European customers of the 33% to 87% of the consumption. The production of textiles, clothing, and accessories has one of the most complex supply chains, and this is why it is one of the most polluted sectors in the world. The European Union is the second largest exporter in the world and imports around $112 billion in amounts. As you can see here in the graph on the left, you will see that according to Eurostat, there have been calculated the imports, exports, and the production per person in kilograms. So for example, the EU has around 7.4 kilograms per person as production in textile clothing and accessories, imports around 27.9 kilograms per person, exports 11.2 kilograms, and also the final consumption is around 25.9 kilograms per person, talking about huge amounts of products. On the picture on the right, we can see the clothing cycle, starting from the raw materials, moving on to the processing, manufacturing, transportation, and retail, where we have a 35% waste, going to the clothing use, where only 54% of it is actually being consumed. Moving on to the end of use. End of use of the products means that the product is either not in use from the consumer anymore, or has actually not been able to be in use. Thus means that 80% of this becomes the ultimate disposal, landfills, or the 20% is trying to be collected and sorted out in order to be reused or recycled. However, from the ultimate disposal, we see bigger amounts of incineration and landfill than from the collection and sorting, where we have the reuse and recycling. After all these amounts that we see, we have the final share of clothing waste being the minimum amounts from what it used to be in the beginning. 5% of household expenditure is on clothing, footwear, while 80% for clothing, 20% for footwear. In 2015, the citizens of the EU bought 6.4 million tons of clothing, and 30% of clothes have not been used for a year. There is a fast fashion constantly that offers new styles to buy. Zara offers 24 new clothing collections per year, while H&M between 12 and 16. These are the consumer use of clothes in the EU. There is a tendency and a requirement, as we can see from the numbers, to make every phase of production more sustainable, since the consumption is so big. There have been several alternatives to fast fashion. Quality over quantity, for example. Buy less, but better. Timelessness over trendiness. Make a product that will be long-lasting instead of temporary fashionable. Manufacturers that use sustainable and fair label practices. It is very important that the manufacturer is transparent and shows the true production phase of one product. Second-hand items at thrift shops. They are not bad, and actually they are very good. Repairing, caring, and donating. Try to make a cycle of the clothes and not throw them in the landfills. If we check on the textile waste that we have here, we see that there are, according to the US, there are 150 billion garments, which means 20 items per person that the fashion industry produces in a year. We have 30% of it that it's never sold, and the fashion market volumes is $1.7 trillion, which is about 12% of its inventory distortion. There is the average American that buys 70 apparel items per year. That is a new piece of clothing every 4 to 5 days. And over 40% of fast fashion products is disposed in under a year. We have 12.8 billion tons of clothing that is sent to landfills annually, while the fashion industry creates 92 million tons of textile waste, which is around 12.3 kilograms per capita across the planet. The fashion industry makes 2,700 liters of water to make one t-shirt. An average person drinks that much in 2.5 years. 1.2 billion tons annually is the total greenhouse gas emission from textiles production. That is more than of all international flights and maritime shipping combined. By 2030, fashion industry brands would see a profit reduction of 52 billion across the industry because of scarce resources, higher labor costs, and overproduction. So, fastly, as of 2018, we will have $1.7 trillion sector, more than 150 billion garments, 30% of clothes that it's never sold, $46 billion the value of throwing away, more than 50% of fast fashion products are disposed in under a year, 1.2 billion tons are used annually, and 12.8 million tons of clothes is sent to landfills. There are different types of textile waste. There is textile waste that is coming from finished goods, from raw materials, from design models, and from the waste generation actors. For example, from the raw materials, we might have the dead stock. What cotton and what wood is not used, for example, like in agricultural, which are the natural fibers, is actually thrown away. From the finished goods, we will have the unsold clothes and the old clothes. From the design models, we have the prototype rounds, which are very important in order for the producer and the manufacturer to meet a mutual result. The waste generation actors are the forecast and error, growing demand for clothing, distortion of sense of value, and the unit cost. The unsold clothes and the old clothes. What is the consumer doing with these garments? Are they being thrown away? Are they being sent to be reused or recycled? What happens to the dead stock or the raw materials? It has taken time to grow these raw materials, and it will take time to gather them as well in order to be processed. However, it is a true waste to throw some of this away. The prototype rounds. There are several steps that during the supply chain, the manufacturer and the producer are coming into communication in order to see what the design is about. In order to reduce the waste of finished goods, for example, There are the waste generation actors, which are the forecasting error, the growing demand for clothing, the distortion of sense of value, the unit cost, and there are the waste prevention actors, which is making on-demand production, try to have zero waste design, redefining progress and sustainability, and rewriting the regulations. On-demand production is faster. Small batch production, local to the end consumer. It could be a one-off customized item or a rule-based batch order. There are several brands across the EU, local brands not known as many, that are actually using the on-demand production. They have the samples that their production is about, and when the consumer is interested, he can ask for it according to his own proportions of the body. There is agility by capturing the latest fashion trends, no inventory, customer satisfaction is to the maximum, and there is less environmental issues. Plus, on-demand production is something that has been pushed by COVID-19 pandemic. Talking about demands, the demand is that what the consumer is asking for the production to bring him. This will mean that there should be a zero waste design, the material is planned, there is investing on local production and the technology. We see here a apparel design model. We have the sustainable guide here, in contrast with the regular and traditional way of designing the model. First of all, we have the idea generation. The traditional design phase is based on 2D sketches, classical product development cycle from preparation of the cut pattern and modifications to sewing prototypes, and innumerable iterations with many samples traveling back and forth between the factory and the customer. While on the digital assets and tools, we have the 3D design, digital prototyping, which actually reduces physical sampling costs, increases speed to market, reduces product development lead time, leverages voice of consumer, and improves sustainability, not only on samples, but also in the consumption as well. It is necessary for the on-demand production. It is important to mention here that a 3D virtual fit based on non-scientific size models, it is different from a 3D virtual fit based on customized avatars according to the target market's body shape. The virtual prototyping is happening the same on both sides. However, when it comes to the sampling, there are differences. When the virtual fit is based on non-scientific size models, then the production cannot eliminate or reduce harmful impact. However, when the manufacturer has actually the target market's body shape, then the garments are not in incorrect size, they are actually in the right size. According to the end customer, the fit is correct, and therefore there will be no returns from the consumer. Thus, the extent is that the useful life of clothes and the 4 action area of SCAP 2020. To summarize, there are all parts of the industry that need to take action. Not only the consumers and the manufacturers, but also the policymakers, the retailers, the industry itself. There has to be new legislation, regulation, green taxation, tools for better balance, and a slower system. Policy for extended producer responsibility. The industry must prevent waste, must invest in pollution control technology, must avoid surplus production, must close the material loop, and must have a supply chain transparency. The consumers should extend products use times, should be having conscious consumption and actually consumption of a slower pace. All stakeholders need to be motivated. Despite the global awareness of fashion industry contribution to the environmental pollution, the industry, though, begins to grow. This makes it a very complex supply chain, and each step has its own contribution to the environment. Current fashion consumption practices are harmful to the environment, and all sides, all parties of this huge industry must take action. In the following slides, you will find useful information and resources which were also used for this unit and for further knowledge for you. Thank you very much.